Adjourn. Honourable Member for North Island-Powell River.
Go.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. On February the 26th, I asked the Minister a question about the BC Regional Economic Development Agency. I requested that a location of one of those offices of this new agency be located in my riding. In November of last year, I put forward a motion 53, in the House of Commons, calling for the federal government to be guided by principles for a sustainable and equitable future when considering funding for COVID-19 relief and recovery. Rural and remote communities across Canada are facing specific challenges that are often ignored and unrecognized by the Government of Canada. I ask the House to recognize and honor that. Canada, as a nation, has a rich history of resource-dependent rural communities providing the economic prosperity many Canadians have benefited from, and that this prosperity has been at the expense of or specifically excluded local Indigenous peoples and communities, and that the future of these resource-dependent communities are at risk due to climate change, the changing resource sector, the loss of ecological diversity and integrity, and of course, the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Rural and remote communities have built this country and lived through multiple boom and bust cycles. This is a challenge that I want to work with the government to repair. This can only be done with fair disbursement of funds. So when the announcement came from the government about the BC Regional Economic Development Agency, I wrote immediately to the minister to let her know that our region is a good one to invest in. I believe it is essential for offices of government to be located in urban and rural communities. As rural and remote communities face challenges in the changing economy and environmental realities, it is imperative that there be a specific focus for these areas. Our industries are changing, and COVID has had serious impacts. I and my office have spoken to many in the tourism industry who are very afraid of the future of their work. The forest sector is still recovering from a lengthy strike. The federal government has announced a change for spot pond fisheries that has seriously concerned the industry. Public fisheries continue to want to hear more about the commitment to mark select fishing. And communities are still waiting for the report that the Parliamentary Secretary of the Department of Fisheries and Oceans promised this spring on what a more sustainable aquaculture will look like. Summer is days away. The consultations have happened with communities, industry, and Indigenous leadership, and we are still waiting. With recent DFO science identifying the concerns of open net farms, it is important that this report on sustainable aquaculture come out to clarify the next steps for our region. People want to know, Madam Speaker. We have also heard a commitment for investment in wild salmon, a key part of our region's cultural and economic health. Communities are waiting for the details to support and protect the wild salmon that are struggling so profoundly. Madam Speaker, my motion demands that funds be applied and distributed equally by federal riding, geographic region, and province or territory. That is why I'm asking the minister, when will BC hear more about the BC Economic Development Branch? Does she commit to having locations in rural and remote communities to better understand these particular needs and voices? When will she answer my letter and let my constituents know if an office will open in our region? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Economic Development. You are the honourable member, please, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm happy to respond to the question from the honourable member from North Island-Powell River regarding our new Regional Economic Development Agency for British Columbia. And I appreciate her making this important request for constituents and her emphasis on rural, because I come from a rural riding, and also on her support for the salmon support we're giving, because that affects my riding too. Our government understands the importance of investing in communities, and we know that the regional development agencies are often the best vehicles of these investments. That sentiment has been reinforced throughout this pandemic. From the outset, the RDAs have been on the ground across Canada, helping businesses weather the effects of the pandemic. Through the $2 billion Regional Relief and Recovery Fund, we've helped businesses stay afloat and protect jobs. The RRRF has been important in Western Canada, which is already facing unique economic challenges, which the member has just mentioned very nicely. Under the very strong leadership and successful action of the Minister of Economic Development to date, the RRRF has delivered more than $775 million to approximately 9,000 businesses in Western Canada. And thanks to this support, we've helped protect more than 40,000 jobs across Western Canada, including more than 15,000 jobs in BC. Our RRF funding in BC has gone to all parts of the province, and in part thanks to the BC's Community Futures offices, which have delivered more than $60 million to more than 1,400 rural BC businesses impacted by the pandemic. As we build back better, our government understands that we need to continue delivering support directly to our regions and our communities. In BC and across Western Canada, we understand there are unique economic realities, which the member mentioned, and that one-size-fits-all approaches no longer work. In the fall 2020 Fall Economic Statement, we announced we'd be creating a new regional economic development agency for British Columbia with new dedicated funding to help businesses and communities in British Columbia continue to grow and create good jobs across the province. In Budget 2021, over and above $1 billion for tourism, we back that up with real investments. We're going to provide this new BCREDA with $553.1 million over 5 years, starting this year, 21-22, and $110.6 million ongoing. These investments will support the new agency and ensure our government is there to help businesses in BC grow and create good jobs for British Columbia. As we establish this new RDA, we're continuing our commitment, making sure it's driven by the local realities, which the member mentioned. The Minister of Economic Development and the Parliamentary Secretary for the new BC agency, the member for Burnaby North Seymour, have met with and heard from a diverse number of economic development thought leaders, including those on Vancouver Island and surrounding coastal communities. Their guidance will ensure that the new BCRDA is built by and for British Columbians with greater local presence and improved service and more locally engaged staff. We're still in the early days of this new BCRDA, which means we can't yet determine exactly how it will look or where the offices will be located. However, I can say with certainty that our government listens to the local stakeholders, and when the new Pacific Regional Development Agency opens its doors, it will allow our government to play a robust role as advisor, investor, and most importantly, a partner for businesses and communities across British Columbia. Merci, Masicho. Thank you.
The honourable member for North Island-Powell River.
Well, I thank the member and I appreciate his response. And I also appreciate that he represents a very large rural and remote riding. And I think one of the things, and I'm paraphrasing him, of course, that he just said, Madam Speaker, is that the regional offices are the best sources for local investment. And I really want to just make sure that this government is hearing that. If we do not see these offices also located in rural and remote communities, we're never going to see that fundamental change that needs to happen in this country. So I hope that this member will continue to advocate alongside with me to make sure that my riding has this representation. And I will also say to the member, through you, Madam Speaker, is that the funds for small businesses, especially the tourism sector, really needs to be extended past the deadline that has been provided by this government. Many folks in that industry are worried that they will not be able to hold through this period of time. Tourism is not going to come back this year, and that is a huge concern.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I really appreciate the member's very constructive input, and I will certainly take it back because I have a tourism-based riding too, and I totally understand what she's saying. We're committed to creating a prosperous Canada where Canadians will get well-paying jobs to support their families. That is why we're proposing this new economic development in the West, a refocused agency in the prairies, and this new agency for British Columbia that will be responsible for the special diverse economic needs so nicely outlined by the member. The new points of service and the locations will be determined through careful consideration of the needs of those we will serve and will be announced after complete consultations are completed and the decisions have been made. We know they will improve how we support British Columbians as well as Canadians in the prairie provinces and position their families, communities, and businesses for success. Thank you, and thank you to the member.
The